Welcome back to the Redeeming Real Estate Podcast. Once again, my name is still Robbie Osinga.
And I'm BJ Armstrong. And might have Brian, of course.
He's still here. Well, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking with your dad about legacy of how you got into the business, BJ, about some heart shifts and some changes that have taken place. And now this week, I really want to dial in on some real practical things. We've talked about identifying your calling and your dream and the specific things that you're called to do. And so, like we said, there's some other resources we can point people to in doing that. But let's say you figured those things out. Let's say you've got more clearly in mind what you're striving towards, whether it be your priorities of God, family, and business, or whether it be even specific goals. Still, the business growing and profit and all that is still not a bad thing inherently. However,
it's
how do you?
Actually.
Yeah, it is. How do you keep stuff in focus and in check? Let's start with you, Brian, from getting started with this shift and kind of looking at things differently. What were some things you put in place to keep yourself from straying off so that you can keep working towards, like you said, becoming a better disciple of Jesus, but also to become a better business owner, a better father, a better husband? What were some checks you put in place to keep you in balance there?
All right. I find for me the real issue is a battle for my mind. I just constantly drifting off, thinking over here, and to keep focused on the things we've got. One scripture that does that for me is Philippians 4:8, and the Apostle Paul puts that together pretty succinctly, and he says, do this, and it'll keep your mind focused where it ought to be. Think about whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's just, pure, and lovely. And
well, I just want to start
thinking about
true, noble,
just, pure, and lovely.
Whatever's
admirable, whatever's excellent, whatever's worthy of praise. Think about those things. So when that battle comes and you're thinking about all this bad stuff that might happen, put it in perspective, is what God said. You've got a choice to think all that other stuff, and you can't think of two things at the same time. So you think about these things, and it'll turn that day around for you and bring the joy that's supposed to come there.
You know what's crazy interesting about that? There's this, psychologists talk about this thing called chaos theory, and it's that your mind reverts to chaos when it's not filled with something else, right? So Apostle Paul, I think, was pretty right on because it's pretty scientifically proven now that you'll create just ridiculous, horrible, dumb stories in your head.
Doomsday scenarios,
right?
Yes.
So when you focus on true, noble, that's game changing.
Yeah.
So the reason I was wanting you to say those words again, those are not words you typically hear in a real estate office. I mean, honestly, in almost any business context, thinking along those lines.
So maybe I shouldn't admit this, but they don't show up in this office every day like that either, right?
Sure. So, I mean, thinking, there are a lot of fires that inevitably get started in any business, but in particular thinking in the real estate things. So would you mind, BJ, I know this is we didn't plan this out, but think through what's one of the most typical fires that gets started, a calamity, a whatever, and what's, in terms of redemptive perspective on real estate, what are the ways you start to shift your mindset?
Happens everywhere. In competitive marketplace, right? You get two agents battling for the same client. It happens often.
Yeah.
And you, the client, get to choose who you want to choose, and the other person's going to be hurt. I don't care if you only had 2-second conversation with them, they're going to be hurt, and they're going to feel like they deserve that commission, not the other guy. It becomes a problem. So the chaos theory then, right, this other agent starts making up all these stories. And not that they're verbalizing and the lying and all, that's not where I'm going, but it just becomes this negativity that shows up. Once that shows up in an office environment, I don't care if it's real estate or anything else, it's poison, right, to this kind of place. So, yeah, if you can get that going on, and honestly, when we look at, one of the things I love about the Keller Williams real estate franchise, you look at the values and the beliefs that we have and that we spell out for everybody that walks in the door, they absolutely align with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Win-win or no deal. Communication, seek first to understand, right? I mean, we call it the Y4C2Ts. That means nothing to you.
Right.
But to me, it means that.
Yeah.
And that, again, blends with the whole Artios conversation that we had a while back.
Yeah, and I mean, Paul's what he's saying there is set your mind on these things. Well, what are ways we set our minds on these things? Now, if you all were to be able to look around the room that we're sitting in right now, there's stuff you can put on the walls. There are things you can read each morning. There are emails you can subscribe to. There's gobs of stuff. What are some of the things for each of you that have added the most value in keeping you centered on those types of things rather than the traditional heading down the selfish, worldly pursuits that are really heading to a place where not a lot of fruit?
One of the things that Dad used to say to me all the time as a kid, garbage in, garbage out, right? Back in the day when computers were new, I think that phrase was around all the time, right? If you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And he would tell me that when I'm watching TV or whatever else. It was always, it's a visual for me that points back to that. So most of it has to do what you're putting in.
Yeah.
That's what's exactly going to come out.
Yeah.
And so for me, what that's looked like over the last many years is I've set up a rhythm to get up every morning at 5 o'clock. It doesn't matter if you stayed up late, you get up, and that's what you do. And that becomes a filling time. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity to come in and figure out what is true and noble and pure and lovely, that's what you fill yourself with the first of the day. And it's got a much better opportunity of showing up throughout.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think of practical next steps for someone who's listening to this or watching this and going, guys, it sounds great, and I know I'm not there, but I desire to get there. One of the things, Brian, that you mentioned was the choice to begin a partnership with Bob Cornwell. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And you said you were hesitant. Now, that's like business 101, like avoid partnerships, right? Yeah. However, those of us who've had any level of success in business know that not having partnerships is pretty foolish as well. Sure. So in terms of garbage in, garbage out, some of that goes with who are you working with? And a lot of those aren't just people that are assigned that you have no control over. No, a lot of those we have some control over who are mortgage brokers that we work with, who are the home inspectors we work with, who are the builders, there's so many choices. Tell me, what was it that made you think, okay, this is more than just a 2-couple house deal. I want to continue to partner with this guy, Bob, and some traits that maybe other people can look for in partnerships as well.
Sure, maybe I said that earlier, but you can't do it all. I wasn't necessarily good at everything. I would have had to find somebody that could do some creative work to put plans together to do that kind of thing. I was good at the financial part of it and management part of it, selling part of it, and those things. But I needed that, so I recognized that. The thing that Bob had, we were like-minded. He was a Christian as well, and I watched him. We didn't do it overnight, but I watched him, and I admired the things that he was doing. So it became a right fit. Yeah. It became a right fit, and nothing's simple and easy. Nothing's perfect. But you look past those things as you go, still reminding yourself, these are the good things.
And somewhere along the way, you guys, your values really meshed.
No, they really did. We knew that to start with. We could sit down before the day started and pray together.
Yeah.
And your goals and objectives comes out in those prayers.
Sure.
And that's what you go do.
Yeah.
You're inspired and encouraged to go do it.
It's interesting, and even as I think about whether they're my competitors or the people right here in this office, who you're in business with matters.
It does.
That alignment of values is, I don't want to call it secret sauce, but that's probably a big part of it.
It is.
And I get your complimenting.
It's not talked about enough.
You're complimenting things, but the aligning values is huge. And I don't care if you're a customer building a house, right. If your values align with the person that you're buying the house from, I don't care if it's one of my employees. If our values don't align, we're going to have a problem. If you're buying an existing house from an agent, if your values don't align, something's going to be wacky, right? And you're
Right.
and you're going to feel it right away.
Yeah. So to put this in a real practical level, we've got some different groups of people who might be listening to this and looking for, hopefully this isn't garbage in, right? They're looking for something to help them head in a better direction. For those who are in the real estate and the building world, what have you learned in terms of forming partnerships or red flags to avoid when you kind of see and you go, okay, I want to steer clear of that and I want to lean into this? That would be some sort of practical checklist type stuff that people keep their eyes open for.
You want a laundry list? Honestly, I don't know how to answer your question. What do I look for? Whether it's let's go to a subcontractor. How do we know that these people are going to do it? Honestly, we go to value conversation almost immediately.
Really?
I want to know the overused word is quality. I want to know your quality before I know anything else. Honestly, you can pick that up in 5 minutes talking to anybody, instantly whether or not your values mesh.
Right.
And the people that you don't, honestly, you repel, right? You're not going to get there. And then there's a handful that you get closer to, and it probably requires a little deeper examination. Most of that shows up in your track record. What have you done for the last 5 years? I can probably look at your history over the last 5 years and go, okay, does his track record align with the values that he says he has and the value that I have? And right, can we get this perfect match?
Right. Yeah, I think, and you're right. You kind of know. And I think even as we're having this conversation, everyone's thinking in the back of their minds, there's that one relationship I got right now that is not really, let's just be honest, it's not bringing about a lot of fruit in my life or in my business or in whatever. And either we need to have some honest conversations about a greater working towards those values aligning, or there's a time and a place where walking away is the best thing.
Absolutely, and I think that works for. It works for a realtor-client relationship. It works for an employee relationship. That's pretty true across the board, I think.
Yeah. So when you as you're a business owner and you're building your team, and you're looking to grow both from the building side as well as from the real estate side, who are the types of people you are looking for to build your organization? Because I know some people are listening to this and going, I'm thinking real estate might be a thing for me, and I'm looking at all the different options that are out there.
It's that values conversation, the like-minded. You mentioned like-minded. That's the word, right? So I'm looking for that first and foremost. Do we think alike?
Whether or not before they should even be in real estate or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot of mess that shows up in there. Honestly, I don't care about your political convictions, and I. At the end of the day, I don't care if you claim Jesus to be your Savior or something different. That, at the end of the day, doesn't mean that our values don't align. Again, we're going to know it. I have questions and that stuff that I can pull through to get that out of you.
Yeah.
But again, we know it right away. So you start with values, and then you look into track record.
Yeah.
Let me give you a value. I've got 3 text messages on here that says that I, as a grandpa, am supposed to go pick up my 7-year-old grandson and take him to buy a birthday gift. And I wouldn't miss that for anything. So I'm done.
That's a good value.
It's been great. I appreciated the conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I do. I like. Let's get those priorities up front, and family's it. So he's out, you're out, I'm out. Thanks for listening to the Redeeming Real Estate Podcast. We'll catch you next time.